Hey, I'm Susanna Lanier, actor and acting coach for over 25 years.
I'm Jess Greenberg, casting director for over 10 years.
We're here to help you navigate this crazy, creative, and sometimes chaotic journey into the film and television world.
We share our insights as to what works.
And invite some pretty spectacular guests to share more ideas to move you on your journey.
So without further ado, let's get into the show.
Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with the talented Amber Goldfarb. You might recognize her from the popular video game Assassin's Creed, as well as multiple film and TV roles in both English and French, such as Bellevue, The Bold Type, and most recently, Netflix's Sex Life. Welcome, Amber!
Hi. Thank you. Hi. Happy
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Yes, this is so exciting. Okay, let's jump right in. Can you tell us how you discovered acting and when you knew you wanted to make this a career for yourself?
Actually, I had a very weird epiphany when I was about 6, where I was just playing in my living room and I was watching TV sort of distractedly as I was playing, and there was a sitcom on. And I remember just being like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And it was not a decision or even a realization. It was more just like a knowing. It was like I tapped into the space-time continuum and knew that that was the thing that I was meant to do. It's so weird. And I never faltered from that.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, after that, I mean, I just kind of, it was like school plays and stuff like that. And I was always very loud and I like to be the center of attention. And the other parents at school would tell my mom like I was the only one that they could actually understand from the back of the gym. And I just loved it. I loved to perform. And then I went on to go to FACE, which is a fine arts school. And I was able to, again, just do a lot of theater and kind of hone those skills. And I went on to Dawson from there. And I got an agent in my last year of high school and just started gradually auditioning here and there. So I started around 16, really. Wow. But I was only kind of professionally getting out there and really getting into a lot of rooms probably after my second year of theater school. And then once I graduated,
quite early. Yeah, that's like early to start a career, like a professional career, which is amazing.
Yeah. Well, my mom didn't although it was very clear that it was what I wanted to do. And people would often be like, why don't you, get her an agent or kind of move things along for her? She wanted me to go at my own pace. And I was a very sensitive kid and I really took things personally. And I think she knew that I needed to grow up a bit in that regard before I was ready to enter into an industry that can be so fierce. And if you take things personally, you'll get hurt a lot, right? It's not personal. Like that's the thing. So I think that was actually really wise on her behalf of just letting me learn, just kind of thicken my skin a little bit. And then really everything was on my terms, like all of the acting classes I took, because I would do like extracurricular ones as well. I took some classes at DTF and stuff like that. And that was all me. It was me like, I want to take this class. Like, can we make it happen? And I think that also taught me to take charge and have some agency in terms of what I want to do with my career. And yeah, it was a good learning experience, even at a young age. Coming out of high school, it was either Dawson or John Abbott. And for those of us who lived in the city, going to John Abbott was quite far. So we just kind of all were like, well, we'll just, audition for Dawson's professional theater program. So I did that 3 years, came out a little banged up.
Okay.
It's tricky with theater school because you have so many props and like the different faculty members have different approaches and different ideas of what good acting is. And when I came out of theater school, I had so many voices in my head of like, this is how you're supposed to do it, or no, it's supposed to be that. And I was just too in my head.
Right. And
I had lost touch with my instincts, and I always had good instincts as an actor. It was something that I, as we've spoken about, I've done since I was a kid. And in order to do really good work, you need to trust yourself, right? And you need to feel like free to try things and to make mistakes and to fall on your face, and it's all good. But I left theater school feeling like I have to get it right. I have to get it right, or else I'm not, like, I won't work. And I was so scared. And then I actually took your class, Susanna,
Yes,
which
I
was such
remember.
a soothing balm.
Oh, good.
It
Oh,
was
good.
because you were so, like, you would challenge us, but you were so gentle and like positive and just like encouraging us. And it really helped me regain my confidence.
Well, you were great. I mean, I remember you were fantastic when you when you started, and I remember watching you in the plays at Dawson. You were fantastic.
Oh,
like
thank you.
I felt,
that.
and it's interesting. You said you didn't trust your voice, because I was like, I've always felt you're so confident, and you knew what you wanted, and you were so hardworking and so professional. And I was like, oh, Amber's like going to be successful in this industry. Like I could see it as a whole package, the talent, but also the ambition. You were a whole package. You had both.
Yeah.
But you're saying when you graduated school, that wasn't always
no. And I had, like,
feeling.
I've been very vocal about that in the community, but, I had a faculty member who tried to break me. And so I needed to kind of heal from that whole experience and regain my sense of identity. And I think where it really showed up was actually in the audition room, because when you're being judged, quote unquote, is when your demons kind of speak up, right? So like we all have that little inner critic, but when you've been through really challenging experiences or traumatic experiences, that voice gets louder. And it was crippling for me. Like I would do great work at home or like in class where I didn't feel like
great work
judged.
in my class. Yeah, great work in my class.
I appreciate that. But then I'd get in the room sometimes and I think I would get so nervous because I felt like I wasn't allowed to get it wrong. I wasn't allowed to make mistakes. I wasn't allowed to flub a line. And I had to really work on that to let go of like the pressure of needing to be perfect. And that was a journey. And I think I think my career really started to take off once I got past that and moved through it, if you will. Another thing that really helped me is that although I always stayed really ambitious and focused on my work, and I love honing my craft and learning and growing, but I also invested in other areas of my life a lot more.
Right.
And by living a fuller life, it put a lot less weight on whether or not I was working all the time or what I booked or didn't book. I have a rich family life, a rich social life. I have my own projects. And so, I go in for an audition and it's like, cool, I'm gonna have fun with this. And then I walk out and I forget about it. And I go do my other things. And if I get a call, amazing. But I'm not sitting there thinking about it, like twiddling my thumbs at home, which is what I was doing when I first started.
Yeah.
When I first started, I was just so career obsessed. I started to realize that my sense of what I was going to book or not book was so off.
Oh,
I was completely wrong so many times. Like the amount of roles that I've booked that I would get the sides and be like, I'm wrong for this. I'm too young. I'm too old. I'm not pretty enough. I'm too pretty. Like whatever it is, like based on the context of the character within the story, I would decide, no, I'm not going to get this. And those would be the ones that I would book. I swear.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, sorry?
You go in with a different energy. It's like, I'll do the work. I'll do my best. And I probably won't get it. And you throw it away.
Exactly. I mean, like with Sex Life, the day that I taped for Trina, I had another self-tape and my friend came over and I was like, okay, I have 2 tapes today, but let's focus on this one for the feature because I really like this role and I think I have a good shot at it. And we spent like an hour, banging out this really great tape. And then I looked at the Sex Life one and I was like, should we do it? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, I'm not going to book this. Like, I'm really sure that they're going to go with someone older. And I don't think. And my friend was like, Amber, I'm here. Let's just do it. And I was like, fine. We banged it out 1 take.
Wow.
And that's what I sent. And then I got a call back.
Wow.
And then the call back, I had been in Montreal and had to travel to Toronto, and it was like very hectic. And normally I'm the over prepared actor who like really rehearses before I go in the room, because especially in Toronto, you don't have a lot of time. You got to show up prepared. But I ended up being really rushed and I only ran my scenes once. with my friend. And then I was like, yeah, I gotta go. And like, I show up at the audition. And as a result, I was really free and I wasn't stuck in my delivery at all. And like the director played with me. We did the scenes like 5 different ways. And because I hadn't over rehearsed, it was really easy for me to switch gears.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, I booked the role.
Yeah. I wanted to change directions a little bit. I want to ask about the CFC, because I know you went there, and I think that was a change for you. That changed a lot for you in terms of your career. And so do you want to talk a little bit about that experience and what happened from that experience?
Yeah, sure. Well, when I first went to Toronto, I went pretty soon after theater school, and a friend had convinced me to move with them because he was like, there's not enough opportunity in Montreal, we should get out of here. And I was like, okay, and I kind of went along with it. And it was a little soon for me, you know. I was like a little fish in a big pond, or in a big sea. I was not getting seen a lot, and I had a few breakthroughs. I booked a guest starring role on Lost Girl, and a few things were happening, but mostly I was getting called back to Montreal.
Yeah.
And that was when the video game work started picking up for me, and I was really enjoying that. So I ended up, you know, living in Toronto, but commuting back to Montreal all the time. And then I was kind of more in Montreal for a while. And then my dear friend, Kimberly Sue Murray, was like, we should apply to the CFC. We both applied, we both got callbacks, and we were roommates at the time. So I had a place in Montreal and a place in Toronto, and in Toronto, she was my roommate. And we were actually sharing a room. We were like legit roommates.
Roommates. Yeah. Wow.
And when we had, after our callback, like we did a lot of talking, and we're like, this is really hard. You know, one of us might get in, neither of us might get in, but no way both of us are getting in. And that's going to be really hard to like see the other get to have that opportunity. And so we talked a lot about it, and we were kind of scared of what was to come. And then the manager of the program calls me, and she's like, are you with Kim? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, put me on speakerphone. And we're like, okay. And so she's like, you both got in. And we're like,
oh my
screaming.
God.
Because they
That
take
like
8 actors, only 8 from across Canada.
Well, I don't know
how many apply. Like, I mean,
I think in the hundreds. I mean, they get a solid
thousands, Jess. I mean, I had every time the CFC, not anymore, but almost all my students ask, can you write me a letter of recommendation? Because so many people apply, because it's a bursary program. They pay you to go there. They like they cover you. So if they pick you, it's because they really believe this person is going to contribute to the industry. So that's who they pick. People they believe will contribute to the industry because they're paying them to go there. So it's a big
job.
Big deal. It's a job. It's a job, right? I think it's changed now, the criteria. I don't think that, but when you went, it was still like that, right, Amber?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, they definitely are looking for talent, like kind of like rising stars, or
that's amazing.
The people you get to meet. I mean, it's like directors, producers, casting directors, people that are working currently, actors. We had so many mentors. I mean, we got to meet Guillermo del Toro. Like, we had amazing people that were coming in and working with us, and so it was a wonderful learning experience. And you know, doing TIFF was really cool. Like, they got us a press and industry pass, so our homework during TIFF was to go to 3 movies a day. And then
I'll take that homework. That's fun.
3 movies a day, and then we, you know, parties in the evening. So like for 10 days, we're just like movie.
What a terrible gig.
Yeah, you're like half asleep when you arrive in the morning. But that was incredible to see so many films, and it was a really great opportunity. And you, because of the people that you get to meet, like you build a rapport. I think that it also can give you some confidence too, because it's just like, okay, well, they saw something in me.
Yeah.
You know, they selected me out of all these actors in Canada. So I have something to offer. And that's always validating as an actor. You know, we doubt ourselves and we get all insecure. And so that confidence boost can be really good. But I didn't have like a huge success immediately after or anything like that. I definitely got in more rooms. I got seen more. But I think there's also that tricky element of just being where you need to be. And I know that sounds so vague, but sometimes things just don't quite click because there's not the right chemistry. It's not that you're not working hard, you're not doing good work, but like something is not quite clicking, and it has to be, you need to be at the right place, like working in the right city where they're into your vibe, or you have the right agent. There's all these factors that kind of play in.
Yeah.
And I think that I hadn't struck it exactly right. And the agent that I'm with now really gets me, and I think she really knows how to pitch me, and she understands what my strengths are. And that counts for so much, because if your agent is picking up the phone trying to get you an audition, but they don't know exactly how to sell you, well, the casting director might agree to see you, but then be underwhelmed because it wasn't what they sold, or they might not want to bring you in another time. But if your agent really gets the thing, they're like, this is what makes her unique, see her for this, then it just, everything moves more smoothly, right? Like that's such an important relationship. And it's not always like having the biggest agent. Sometimes having an agent who is starting out that has the right support, maybe at a bigger agency, but they're really hungry and they're really motivated, that can also work out really well, so I got better at sort of trusting my gut about those things. And I think at the beginning of my career, I would expect other people to tell me what to do, like, who should I sign with, who should I be with, is this a good choice? And then with time, I realized, because of that sort of like chemistry, hard to pin your finger on it thing, I learned to just trust my gut.
Absolutely. And so your agent now, you only have representation in Toronto, right? Your agent's in Toronto.
Well, my English agent is in Toronto, but I have a French agent in Quebec.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. The relationship with my French agent is exactly what I was talking about, just trusting my gut. That was a funny experience of actually booking the room, because I did an audition in 2009.
Yeah.
With the director who I had worked with in English, and then he wanted me to come in for this French project. And the casting assistant who was in that session remembered me and asked me to come in for a double-carded commercial a couple years ago. I think it was just before the pandemic hit. And I did the audition, and then she was like, well, why don't I see you auditioning in French? And I was like, oh, well, I have an English agent and she's in Toronto, so she doesn't even speak French. So I'm not like, that's not even an option. She's like, well, we need to fix that, don't you think? And I was like, maybe, yeah. And she's like, okay. She's like, can I help you? And I was like, yes, you can help me. So she made a few phone calls, and she got me a meeting with the agent that I signed with. And it was just like instant chemistry, instantly hit it off. And she was like, oh, I'll let you take some time to think about it. And I was like, no, I want to work with you. And my first audition was for this series that I'm on. We're on a third season now. We start next week.
Incredible. What series is it? Yeah,
it's called Les Moments Parfaits.
Nice.
It's a TVA show.
Okay.
And so my first audition for her was with this show. And I didn't book that role, but they brought me in for another role, and I booked that one. And so it was just this like crazy synchronicity of like everything came into alignment. It felt like destiny. Sometimes we have those moments in life where just everything works out in a magical way, and you're like, thank you.
And you're like, this was meant to be. Like this it was easy flow. Like,
yes, it was. And that's it. Now 3 seasons, now we're starting our 3rd season, and it's been an amazing experience. I love working in French. The crew, the cast, everyone is just like, it's a family vibe, like very friendly, very warm.
And apparently their scheduling is a lot more organized than on the English side.
It's so good. Like for actors, just even from the audition experience, like the casting directors on the French side book half-hour sessions per actor. The director's in the room. The reader comes out and runs lines with you before you go in. They're like, do you want to run in Italian? They always do it. It's standard practice.
Yeah.
Then you go in and they work with you. And so you could get to readjust if you came in with like if you didn't hit the right tone or the right energy, they can adjust.
Yeah.
And then our shoot schedule has been really reasonable, because it's like we don't do more than 12-hour days. So usually it's like a 7-hour crew call, wrap by 7. You can be home in time for dinner, which
some normalcy.
Yeah, it feels like it's kind of like a little bit like having an office job. It is longer hours, of course, but it's the closest that I've experienced, other than like the video game work, where when I'm doing mocap or PCAP, it's like usually 9 to 5 type vibe as well.
Yeah.
In French, I've experienced that, and not all French sets are like that. It depends on the show, it depends on their budget, but the TVA shows generally work like that. And I think it prevents burnout. And I think that people are happier because they get more family time, and you get to have a little bit more of a life.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Well,
so important. Like I always wonder, it's like what, like, yeah, the hours, the intensity of some productions, it's like, why do we do this to ourselves? Like,
right.
it's really yeah. So it's nice to
For
hear that it
sure.
exists and it makes sense and
Yeah.
people are happy.
Yeah, and I think COVID is encouraging that even more on the English side as well. Like there's definitely, I've been hearing about a push in Hollywood for more like family-friendly sets in that regard of just like not doing crazy overtime. Well, that's why I'm so grateful that self-tapes have become more prevalent. It's definitely facilitated things for me, especially with the back and forth, with like commuting. I have to commute a lot less now. I'll basically make the trip for callbacks. Even with callbacks, I've had like a few via Zoom. And for the actual first audition, then you get to do a few takes, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in the room, sometimes there's like that pressure to deliver right away. And I think that like your mindset needs to be different when you're going in the room too. Like, I was telling you before about how my perfectionist mindset would get in the way. I had to not accept that I was going to make a mistake, but expect that I was going to make a mistake, and then think about how I wanted to recover. And I think that flubbing a line or doing something silly to fall on your face in an audition is a great opportunity to show your humanity, and then like how you pick yourself up from that.
Right.
And it's actually really likable when you see someone mess up and then recover gracefully.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Feist at the Jazz Fest, and she really missed a note at one point, like way off, and she stopped and she laughed and she's like, oops, that's not it, and she took it again. And it made her so likable. And I was like, oh my God. Like me, I flub a line, I'm like, gosh, shit. And like,
and then you're in your head for the rest of the audition. You're like, oh, I can't believe I wasn't perfect,
Exactly. So now I plan. I'm like, I'm gonna mess up. How do I want to recover? And I think that's a good way of looking at it, because when you're on set, you flub a line too, and you take it again, and you be like, can you give me that line again? And you pick yourself up, and that's still professional. It's not unprofessional to flub a line. It's how you recover.
For sure. And not to make a big deal of it and waste more time. It's like, yeah, let's do that again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's a good note. Yeah. We do quite a few of these podcasts and interview a lot of actors, and you're the first one who said, expect it's not going to be perfect. And how am I going to recover? I'll prep for the recovery. I think that's great. That puts you off the hook,
It takes the pressure off. Whatever you can do to like relieve a bit of pressure.
Yeah. Amazing.
Very
Amazing.
Cool.
So now, we wanted to talk about sex life because that's out there now.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. How has that journey been, taking sex life? Was that a thought process you went through
Yeah. Well, when I first booked it, it was at the same time that I booked the French series.
Right.
And we had started filming, and then the pandemic hit, and production got shut down for Sex Life. And it was such a hassle to work out my dates because of the different rules. So Netflix wanted us to get tested weekly, and then that increased to like bi-weekly when to twice a week in season 2, sometimes 3 times depending on what your schedule was like. And then on the French show there was like a 14-day quarantine between sets. So my agents literally, they were doing backflips, talking to the producers, trying to work it out, and somehow they magically made it work.
Wow.
So I thought I was going to get recast at one point. I was like, this is just one of these projects is going to drop me, but somehow it all worked out. And fortunately there was an intimacy coordinator, Casey Hudecki, who did an amazing job. It was my first time working with an intimacy coordinator in a professional setting. They had been on my radar since Me Too, but it was still very much a new thing and not on everyone's radar. And there was a lot of fear around like, oh, intimacy coordinators are going to either like slow us down or get in the way of the director's creative vision, and like all of this. There was a lot of negativity around it. I think a lot of fear of any time there's a new thing. And I just looked at it as like, it's like a stunt coordinator. You have a stunt coordinator whenever there's physical violence. Well, when there's, intimacy, of all nature, and having someone to guide us through that in a safe way makes a lot of sense. And she was great. We had a phone call. She handled the rider. So like there's an attachment to your contract that is the rider for any intimate scenes. And like she handles that. So we had a conversation about what I was comfortable with, up until like even the coverage and how they would film things.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have say, you have a say as to what you're comfortable with. And then she's on set and she, you know, she has all those conversations to avoid a bad situation, which could be like, sometimes there's that big scene, the swingers party scene, right?
Oh my God, the logistics of that, I can't even imagine.
No, casting those extras. I mean, I'm like, oh geez, how
were they extras? That's not extra work.
They were background performers, absolutely. Yeah, I hope they got paid extra for what they had to do,
well,
though.
for nudity, I think nudity for background, you get paid as an actor with no buyout. So you get a bit of a bump. But
some people are very comfortable with it. Like it's not like it's a body. People are way over the top about it, you know? Like, I don't know. It's always like you think of in Europe on the beach, you know, when an American or us, sometimes you go to Europe and you're like, oh my, like, and then a lot of people don't care, you know, that's what they're used to. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true. And everyone's comfort levels are different. And that's why it's really good to have someone to navigate that and not to have like an expectation that everyone is going to be comfortable doing the same thing, right? It's so personal. So she has those conversations with you. She talks to the director about their vision, and then she kind of preps people so that when you're on set, it's like, okay, there's no phones, no one's filming or taking photos. There's no staring at someone as they're undressing or when they're undressed. There's no comments on people's bodies. She really like gets everyone. There's like prep
the rules,
that goes into it,
right?
Protocol.
So protocol, exactly.
There's protocol, and I think that it makes everyone just feel more relaxed at the end of the day, because it's like, okay, someone's in charge of this because this is complex, and there's a lot of room for someone to feel disrespected or unsafe, and so to know that there's someone who it is their responsibility to navigate that and to like be a leader in it. It doesn't mean that you don't have creative say as actors and as the director. Of course she's trying to like facilitate the vision, but then having it choreographed also makes it less stressful, because not everyone is comfortable like improvising an intimate scene, you know? There's a lot of navigating consent of like what each person is comfortable with. And then she would handle the choreography. So it's very specific of like how long you're holding this for, what the level of intensity is, how they're filming it.
How long holding what for?
Exactly.
So that's, I guess, like my question though is like, how do you know what you're actually comfortable doing? Because that's what I always find, like, you know, doing something in your life, be it sex, be it an activity, is also very different when you're doing it on set in front of people multiple times for could be hours. How do you know what you're actually going to be comfortable with doing?
For sure. It's so hard, and there's always discomfort. And so it's like, how
good point.
How uncomfortable are you willing to make yourself?
Right.
Like we kind of as actors get comfortable being uncomfortable, and in essence. And how far you're willing to go is just like a personal thing. So for me, I look at a scene, read through it, and imagine myself doing it and be like, am I comfortable with this? And if so, under what parameters?
Right.
And then, you know, if you're on set and something is really not feeling right, well, it's a good time to speak up and be like, this just doesn't feel good. Like, how can we adjust? And that's definitely happened. I actually was on that big swinger scene. I hadn't worn my costume, the final piece, until that day, because there was a lot of adjustments that they had made on it. And so I didn't get to have another fitting before, and I showed up and it was not fitting right for my liking. It was like there was an underwire, and like my boobs were just like squished up, and I was just like, I don't feel comfortable. And you know, we adjusted it on the spot. They removed the wires, we did some tweaks, and I was like, okay, it's stressful enough that I need to like perform like simulated fellatio here. Like, can I be comfortable? And they were amazing. Like they wanted me to feel good, but I actually I cried at one point because I was just so, the pressure of it was just so like, and my colleague who played my husband, Jonathan Sadowski, he was amazing. He actually went and got the showrunner, and she came and she was like, Amber, what's going on? And I was like, I just know that. She was like, okay, we're gonna fix this. And she was like, she's also very nurturing and very loving, and not everyone would have maybe reacted that way, but she was like, we're gonna make sure you're comfortable. Let's figure this out. And then the costume designer came, and it was all good. But you know, it's scary, those moments. You're taking a leap, and you're like, okay, I'm putting on my big girl pants, or I'm taking off my big girl pants. But I'm I'm doing this.
But so because this is what I thought, you accepted this role. The title is Sex Life, so it really is about sex, you know, but it was from a female gaze, and it was created by a woman. Did that make a difference for you accepting the role? And
there was, what I really liked about the role and about the project was an exploration of female identity in a way that we don't always see. I think especially for Billy's character, because you see how she's a mom with young kids. She wants to be sexual with her husband, but he's not really feeling it. And that's a common experience. Like, a lot of women go through that, where, you know, it's a little bit of that like Madonna whore dichotomy. It's like, you can't be the mother and also like a sexual being simultaneously. And I hadn't seen that explored before. So when I saw that in the script, I thought it was really interesting that they were kind of delving into that. Trina, it took me some time. I didn't want her to be one-dimensional. And it's hard sometimes with recurring roles where you don't have a lot of screen time to really sink your teeth into the character and give them an arc. And so I was trying to wrap my mind around her psychology and why she would do these things that I would never do. And that was an interesting challenge. And I was able to just get into Trina's skin in a way that I could like don her character and feel okay that morally I, as Amber, didn't agree with things that she was doing. But I needed to wrap my mind around her psychology to feel good about it. I didn't want it to
you have to like love those parts of the character too, right? Like, you have to fall in love with that part, even though you as a person don't agree with it.
Well, that's it. Like, we can't judge our characters. It's not productive. So I had to kind of put aside, you know, what Amber's opinions were, and just understand like, who is this Trina? What makes her tick? And that ended up being a fun challenge. And
she has that arc in season 2. Like, you see it, you know, like she was struggling like in her marriage, and not to.
I liked where they took it in season 2. I thought that was interesting. And then also with, you know, the scene that I was most vulnerable with in season 2 was with the spa scene where I was completely naked. And when I read that, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna have me in a bathing suit. And I was like, no, probably not. And then I was like, am I comfortable with this? And I was like, you know what, I am. And what I found interesting about the scene is that she sheds her kind of defensive guard that she has up all the time, and she's just like emotionally raw and like emotionally naked, and then also physically naked. And I like that. I like that rawness of it. And it was so raw in the day. Like, I was actually a few weeks pregnant at the time, and it was too soon to tell anyone. So I was there on set, like all like naked and pregnant, and I was like, what is happening? It was very raw, very raw. And you know, I was happy with how they filmed it. I thought it looked really beautiful. Like, I was scared,
and it made sense. In the scene. Like, it just made sense. It wasn't like, oh, here's like nudity. Like,
it did. And we had put like Casey, my agent, and I, like, we all spoke about it in terms of how, you know, the coverage. I was like, once I get into really opening up, I was like, I want it framed above my breasts, because I'm like, if my breasts are on camera, like, people are gonna look at my tits. Like, it's just our eyes go there. It's natural, right? So I was like, once she's opening up, tight coverage. So that was something that I'd put in writing. I felt that was really important.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought they did a great job of just like making it look beautiful and look tasteful. And I think that that's also really scary of when you're putting yourself out there of like, how is it going to look? Like, are they going to choose flattering angles? Is my little bump going to show? You know, like these things, you're putting yourself out there. It's so vulnerable what we do as actors to just like bare ourselves, whether it's emotionally, physically.
Or in this case, both.
Do you like prep your parents and family for scenes like this? Do they watch the shows?
So some of them do, some of them don't. Yeah, I definitely prepare them. Like I just warn them. I'll be like, oh, this season, like there's a big orgy scene. This season, I'm completely naked. And I always say like, no pressure to watch something if it's not your cup of tea. You know, it's like, don't just watch it for me. You can watch the scenes on my demo. It's fine. I'll send you the scenes. If you just want to watch me, like don't sit through 6 or 8 hours of content just for me, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people in my circle were watching the show anyway, some without even knowing I was in it. And my poor husband and his friends would be like, I didn't look when we got to those parts. So I just looked away or covered my eyes.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, it's fine, it's all good.
I know, because like I asked because like I'm like literally I just don't talk to my parents about like that stuff at all. And I was on vacation with my mom and she put it on TV and like she was just like watching it and we were getting ready for dinner and like literally the whole orgy scene was there. And she's like, oh, I have no desire to do anything like this. Like, do you? And I'm like, no, you know, but if I did, like, I also probably wouldn't tell you. And I was like, what is happening right now? And then, so that's what made me think, I'm like, I don't think I could, like, obviously you're acting, but like, I don't think I could, if I was an actor, and I will never be one, but like, I don't think I could have like my parents know that. And like, I'm 35, I'm an adult, like, but I don't know. It's just like this hump that I can't get over.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I think it's great that you can.
It's definitely awkward. It cracked me up at one point. My husband's grandma was like, oh, I watched Sex Life. Reminded me of some good times. It's like, great. Good.
Yeah. Or maybe it's nice. It could open the floor to this dialogue and maybe break down some walls.
For sure. Yeah. There's some projects that you're like really gung-ho to have your family see, and other ones you're like, well, maybe you don't need to watch this one.
Yeah.
Then
okay,
cool. So how long have you been back to Montreal officially?
Well, in the 10 years I'd say that I was in Toronto, I was always also in Montreal.
Yeah, you are.
But I'd say pretty much since the pandemic I've been like planted here. My partner and I knew that we wanted to have a family, and our families are here, so it just made sense to be in Montreal and to lay down our roots here. And that's been great. I've still gotten to work in Toronto. I'm just like, I know a lot of actors will ask me about this, of like how to choose where to go, and I think there's a lot of factors that go into that. I mean, it's important to be cognizant of the fact that there are tax credits, and the city that you are going to be booking the most work in is the one that you should be a resident of, because you'll be eligible for more things, right? There's some things that I'm not eligible for in Toronto anymore because they really need their tax credits, right?
Right.
And the same thing goes here. When I had my residency in Toronto, there were things that I wasn't eligible for in Montreal. And there's still things in both cities that they don't need the provincial tax credits, where the federal tax credits are enough, or they're willing to waive them, or they can work out their budget in a different way. But I do think that it's wise to think like where you want to be rooted, where you're happy, where you're working the most, factor in everything that makes up your life, because there's so many other things that make up your life. And for me, the decision to start a family and wanting to be close to our families was huge, because work-wise, I was 50-50. And I love the quality of life in Montreal, and I really love living here. And I consider myself to be very fortunate to build a life in this career in the city that I want to be in. But yeah, it's a tricky thing. I think that a lot of actors are like, oh, well, I want more opportunity. And so they're like, I'm going to get up and go to Toronto. But you need, it's different for everyone, right? There's no one right formula. There's no one right path. As I said, I really believe in trusting your gut. But I think that if you're trying to stand out in a big pool, you need some momentum. You need to ride a wave of something. So either it's like a big booking, or you did the CFC, or you're doing the CFC, or you have an agent who has the clout to get you in those rooms. Just going blind without any momentum to ride on, it's like hit or miss. It might work. You might book the right thing and then get momentum from that, or you might struggle for a few years. I know for me, I remember feeling like it was just taking so long. I was like, this is taking so much longer than I thought. I thought it was just going to move, but because Montreal is a smaller community and it's like a smaller pool, then you can get seen for things more easily. If you have a good rep and you can get in the room, then you can be seen for more things, and you can build up your credits that way.
You're also extremely diverse. Like we talk about that with a few people on the podcast too. Like you do stunts, mocap, voice, video games, commercials, shorts, TV, like
French and English.
And French, like,
French.
so, you're also open to so many different